Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallama wa baraka ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een wa ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another session of Refinement of Souls by Imam Ibn Atā'illah al-Sikandari rahimahullah ta'ala. We hope you benefited from the previous sessions, and we will continue to impart advice and guidance from this great work of Imam Ibn Atā'illah, Taj al-Arus, the crown of the bridegroom, al-Hawi, Li Tahdhib al-Nufus, in that which contains the refinement of souls. And he now mentions, after having talked about various ideas of conversing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and having this private conversation and turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and dua and etiquettes of dua, he talks about the ability to access and be given access and be denied and barred. And he says that there is the outer impurity and purity. So one falls into a state of janaba or major ritual impurity when you require a ghusl, and the ghusl is what purifies you and allows you to be taken out of that ritually impure state. And he says that during that time you are ritually impure, you're in a janaba state, you need to have a ghusl, a bath, then at that stage you're restricted. So you can't go to the masjid, you can't read the Qur'an, and you can't touch the Qur'an. And there's several rulings that are connected to somebody in a state of janaba, a major state of ritual impurity. And it's only ghusl, which is the purification process, that allows you to enter back into the masjid, the Quran, and so on, pray and so forth. Right? Without purification, you can't go into the prayer. So he says this is the same with the inner purity and impurities. When we have inner impurities, inner ritual impurities such as heedlessness, arrogance, and all these kind of characteristics that bar us and deny us our hearts and our spiritual being entry into the presence of the divine, feeling of submission and surrender and khushu, tranquility and stillness in the heart. We have to remove the heedlessness. We have to purify the inner in order to feel and be given the access that we all seek after, that we all actually are wanting and desiring in our lives with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he goes on to mention how this comes by controlling one's desires. As human beings on this earth, as Muslims who live on this earth, as people who are part of this society, we need to understand we've got many roles to play. We need to help our society to work, we need to support our families, we need to look after our bodies, our health, the environment. There's so many things, and Islam is part of everything. It gives us guidance on all of these areas. But one crucial area, and without which it's just not possible to do anything, and the foundation of everything, is knowledge, is sound knowledge, is learning everything, whatever aspect of life it is, about looking after children, about helping our community, about our prayers, about our fasting, our financial transactions and charity. We have to learn. This deen and our worship has to be established on ilm, on sound knowledge. And it doesn't take much for us to learn. We need to take time out to learn the basics of our aqidah, our faith. Take time out to learn how to pray, to fast, to make sure our transactions are correct, to make sure we're fulfilling the rights of the spouse, nurturing our children in the correct Islamic methodology, and morals and manners are being imparted, and that we're fulfilling the rights of our neighbors and so forth. Whatever you're involved in, if you have wealth, then your zakat comes into it, and financial aspects go further, and so forth. Every aspect of life, it requires a bit of learning, and we don't need to go to a big Shaykh, or we need to go to on a specialist course and travel. We really just need to sit with somebody who knows the basics and just discuss, and we need to learn these basic concepts about our prayer, our purification and so forth. This is what will empower us. This is what will enable us to actually act in accordance with the sacred law outwardly, and also inspire us to follow the morals and characteristics that Islam calls us to inwardly. And this is where we are lacking today as Muslims. And not only have we forgotten the tradition of teaching and learning. We even undermine this tradition, and we even look down upon it, and distance ourselves from it. That I know it, I'm intelligent. I don't need to go to a imam or a course or learn from somebody. I know my religion. I was taught it when I was young. I can read a book. And this detachment from real teachers and real people. I mean, we wouldn't do this in any other area of life. We wouldn't say, oh, I know how to fix my car. Yeah, never going to go to a mechanic. I know how to cut my hair. Never going to go to a barber. I know how to do my accounts. Never going to go to an accountant or a solicitor or a doctor. And every field we go to specialists. Every field we know, you can read up about it. You can research. Knowledge is at our fingertips with technology today. And we do Google everything. But ultimately, if you want the expert, sound advice and it's a serious situation, you would go to the specialist and the qualified people. So the same applies, and if not greater, it applies to our deen, our transaction with Allah. Because what is the deen? What is religion? It's your practice of what Allah's commands, and you're presenting your actions to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we don't do that on I know, I'm okay, guesswork, Google it. We need to have this connection, and we need to regulate ourselves with that law. If the law of Islam says it's not allowed, however beneficial it may seem to us, however good it might be for us in our lives, worldly lives, ultimately in the akhirah, in our journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is something we should avoid and stay away from. And that is what is actually a benefit for us, to follow the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the challenges we're faced with in our lives as Muslims, and we see the haram and the things around us, and we need to always bridle our whims and egos and passions with the sacred law. And this comes in all ways, shapes and forms, whether it's our transactions with our eyes, with our hands, with our consumption of food, or with our speech. Everywhere we go, everything we do, we need to make sure we are understanding and knowing of the laws, and we practice them, and we are inspired to practice them. And this is the next stage, that okay, I know them, I learn them. Learning isn't enough. Imam Ibn Atā'illah says, he says, a person who busies himself with seeking knowledge yet does not have insight is like 100,000 blind men who travel on a road utterly confused. You could have all the knowledge in the world. If you don't use that knowledge, if you don't have insight and actually see where it's taking you, what is that knowledge? You're still blind. If there had been one among them, a one-eyed person, if there had been just a one-eyed person, all of the people would have followed him and left 100,000 blind men behind. So you're going to follow the people of just knowledge, or those who practice their knowledge, implement it and follow it with wisdom in the way it should be. And this is the next stage that we need to move on to, not learning but also practice. We learn and we know. So where does that come from? That comes from the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba and the Tabi'un, the followers of the Sahaba and the pious. It comes from looking up and finding good role models. So what do you mean by it comes from the Sahaba? What do you mean it comes from the early generations? When we read their stories, and they're real stories, they're not just fictional, they're realities, it inspires us. It gives us the belief that we can be something similar to that. We should be doing that because they did it. They sacrificed, they struggled. And we learn about this happening throughout Islamic history, and the Muslims that went through these challenges in different ways, in different scenarios. Their sabr we saw their patience, we saw their generosity, we saw their courage, we saw their struggles, we saw their achievements. It should be the inspiration we need and we take to make a change in our lives. And especially when we see around us individuals that are good people, in our elders. Alhamdulillah, we have pious elders amongst us, and those who have worshipped Allah and served the community for many, many years. And they are examples and role models for us to follow. It's those people we need to be in connection with, and this is really important. I feel like the generation gap is become so far, it's such a big divide now. But really, if the young don't sit with the elders, then we're going to lose a lot of good in our communities for the following generations. We're going to be really in a very weak position. We're going to lose a lot of wisdom, a lot of know-how, a lot of inner strength, spiritual strength, by just merely spending time with our elders and the experienced people in our communities. So this is what Imam Ibn Atā'illah is saying. It's just knowledge alone and information age we live in is not enough. You can have all the knowledge and information you have, and it could be amassed to more than anybody else. And you could be the number one in the world with your ability to reel off facts and figures and rulings even, and Islamic knowledge. But what good is that if it's not acted upon, if it's not benefiting you, changing you, improving you, changing you in a positive way, and helping you to become more humble and helpful and submissive to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is what we hope we can achieve through learning the deen, through practicing the deen and following the advice and sitting in the company of our teachers, scholars, the learned, and making that connection. And I ask all Muslims to turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but turn back to Allah through the right way, through the right means, through learning, through accompanying teachers, through accompanying the pious, through accompanying the elders and people of wisdom, and taking time out from the hustle bustle of this worldly, endless, no purpose life, because it doesn't come to a purpose in the end, it finishes. The purpose of this life is to help you for the next life. The purpose of this life is to be utilized in every circumstance, there and then, to benefit for the next life. Not to say I'm going to change later on. Not to say, oh yeah, I'll do my prayers later on. No, there and then pray. There and then deal with the difficulty. There and then build your shukr, your gratitude. And that is what you will take with you to the akhirah. Because otherwise it's finished. The dunya will come to an end and there'll be nothing at the end of it. There will be no bank balance. There will be no equity. There'll be nothing. All you will have is your actions that you acquired through that journey in this life. So make sure you're acting in the right and correct way at every moment, and that comes through learning, comes through practice, comes through accompanying those who know what they're doing, who are themselves trying their best. Surround yourself with good people. Allah bless you all. We'll continue with more advice from the great Imam Ibn Atā'illah in the future. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.